he's done beyond working with us and the team in e-diplomacy, most specifically at the State Department in '09 as a Franklin Fellow. He, in 2010, was a co-director at the Harvard Library Innovation Labs. He's been a philosophy professor. He's a marketing guru. He's an author and columnist. Check out Too Big to Know, and I will tell you what, the most interesting hat he's worn was 7 years as a gag writer starting in the 70s for a Woody Allen comic strip. I've been frantically looking for something that I can source to him. Unfortunately, I have not been able to find that, but I challenge all of you to do so. Anyway, David, welcome.
So the reason you never heard of the Woody Allen comic strip is that it wasn't funny. So let's just get that right out of the way and move on. So thank you, State Department. It's actually for putting this together. This is pretty remarkable. It's an incredible set of people here speaking. Scientists and public servants and activists. It's really impressive. So thank you. Yeah. To see a government office and the State Department taking the lead in forming communities around this is really remarkable. So I want to end the day by trying to remind us of how far we've actually come, because it's very easy to hear these amazing talks and discussions and to forget how far we have come in just, let's say, 15 years, actually probably less than that, let's say 15 years since the web really started taking off. So one of the ways of thinking about this is to look back at what facts, because now we're in the era of big data, but look back at what facts were. So in 1846, might as well get my facts right here. In 1846, Charles Darwin started spending what turned out to be 7 years. He was postponing writing Origin of Species. And he spent 7 years investigating whether barnacles were crustaceans or mollusks. They were supposed to be mollusks. He thought they were barnacles. 7 years, coming home to the dinner table every night, smelling of dead seafood, to 2-volume work to establish that they are crustaceans. And that's what facts were. That's actually a pretty good example. That's what facts were. They were scarce, they were hard-won, they were solid, they had 2 volumes of evidence behind them. And that's what facts were for us in our culture. And now we look at what facts are. You know, facts were scarce. Now, a report a couple of weeks ago said that by 2014, there will be an exabyte of genomic data. An exabyte is a very big number. When I was growing up in computers, let's say 20 years ago or so, talking about a terabyte, that was a ridiculous amount of storage. A terabyte, that's a ridiculous amount of storage. And now many of us have a terabyte on our laptop or certainly on our desktop. An exabyte is a really big number. It's not a petabyte. It's an exabyte. So we're getting very used to this, to these numbers. So when Robert Bechtel mentions pretty casually that 87 gigabytes of data points from the grid are going to be made public, we say, oh yeah, okay, 87. Why didn't they up that a little bit? It seems a little small. 87 billion. Why not, really get into some real numbers? We are jaded now with the sorts of numbers that we see being thrown around and released. A global pulse, same deal. So facts are no longer scarce. They're super abundant. They're beyond our ability to imagine them. Facts were independent of each other. That was sort of how it worked. That you come up with a fact. Barnacle, that's a crustacean. That's an independent brick of fact. And that used to be a metaphor for facts, that they were bricks that lay a foundation that we can rest upon. But one fact, another fact, another fact. And then, of course, they went up to make a picture of the world. So they're not entirely in it, but nevertheless, they were separable, discrete bits of knowledge. Now, the data that's being released as big data is often being released as linked data in the linked data format that Tim Berners-Lee has encouraged us to use. And how many of you are familiar with the linked data format? Right, so I'll say just a quick word about it. Linked data, these are triples, it's RDF, these things, that's what I'm talking about. And in in the linked data world, a piece of data consists of three pieces, hence a triple, subject and object and something, a relationship that connects them, roughly. So the platypus lives in Tasmania, good triple, right? Three things. The water mole, which is the same thing as the platypus, by the way, the water mole has venomous claws, another good triple. But what you do when you release this data, this valuable data, whether it's about platypuses or weather or whatever, you have each of those members of the triple point at some source. So that when a human, or more important, a computer comes along and says, well, what's a platypus and what's a water mole? Each of those are pointing at the same Wikipedia page or the same page in the Encyclopedia of Life or whatever. The computer can say, oh, I see, they're the same thing. I see. And now I know, the computer can make the assumption that, in fact, platypuses have venomous claws. So right in the very heart of facts now, as linked data, they literally consist of links. It's not even that we're linking facts, it's that facts now are links. They're not bricks, they are the opposite of bricks. They're links right in their very heart. And when you put these together, these vast clouds, what you have is what some call data commons, right? If the data is open to everyone, which is exactly what we want, as per the last discussion, we want this data open to everyone because we don't know who's going to be smart about it. We want it open to everyone. And when you do that, you have a data commons. And what John Wilbanks, who was the head of Science Commons, says happens in a data commons is generally you don't get one view that wins, one computer model that beats all the others. What you get are my nerds, this is from John Wilbanks, you get my nerds arguing with your nerds. And in that argument, knowledge happens. That's where knowledge is. It's not even in the cloud. The cloud, this data commons is vastly important, but the knowledge is your nerds arguing with my nerds forever. So, independent of each other as facts? No, not anymore. We thought that facts formed a nice, neat picture, right? It wasn't just a bunch of facts, but you put them together, you get the picture of the universe. In fact, for 2,500 years in the West, we thought that to know something was to know its place in the order of the universe. One order. There's a way that things are. And to know what something is to know its place in this order. This is the order that God created, that God had in mind when he laid out the universe. And it's our job as the reflection of God in our tradition to know, to see the order that God has created, a simple order, a beautiful order. That's what it meant to know something. And to say casually, no, there's no order in the universe, was literally heresy or insanity. It made knowledge impossible, this idea, because knowledge was the discovery of the order, whether barnacles are crustaceans or they're mollusks. They're one or the other. There's an order, and that's what knowledge is. Now what do we do? Well, one type of example is when you're trying to figure out how to put together your collection of digital music. You and your spouse are arguing. If you're arguing over the physical objects, the old CD cases, then one of you has to win. You can't order it both alphabetically and by genre or whatever the argument is. But if it's digital stuff, you both win. You win every time you make a playlist, everybody wins. You say, oh, well, here's my playlist by alphabet, here's my playlist by genre, here's by mood, here's my favorite drummer, whatever. As many playlists as you want. We've generated billions of playlists on this planet now, all operating across the same pool of music. And we do playlists not just for music. We do it the equivalent for everything, multiple ways of categorizing biological creatures, for example. We used to have arguments to the death about it. Now, you do it your way, I'll do it my way. We can at least know that we're talking about the same thing. And every one of these playlists, every way of putting things together, adds information, reveals something, perhaps. Music that it's good to eat pizza with, pizza by. Well, okay, there's a category I hadn't thought of. Maybe I can see an association between music I otherwise wouldn't have seen. So each of these orders, whether it's of playlists or of legal categories or scientific, each of them adds meaning. And it turns out that if you want to scale up meaning, you get a mess. Messiness is how you scale meaning. And messiness, as opposed to the perfect single order, turns out to be rich, important, revelatory, far exceeding what we used to be able to manage in knowledge when we had to organize the physical objects or only write things down in a limited number of books that fit on some very short shelves. So messiness instead of order. And finally, facts used to drive agreement. That's why we like them. We like them because of what Daniel Patrick Moynihan once said, which was everybody's entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. And people say, oh, yeah, that's very wise. And it is in its own way. It expresses a very deep hope in our culture, which is that facts will allow us to live together in agreement. That, or put differently, facts are the hammer we can bring down on somebody's head until one person wins. Depends which way you want to look at it. But there was some comfort in the notion that you get people together, you get the facts, and we'll all come to agreement. All of this noise and disagreement will go away. That's long been a hope of our culture, at least since the Enlightenment and arguably well before that. So what's the one thing that everybody learns when they go out on the web for maybe 10 minutes? We don't agree about anything. There is nothing that we all agree on. Take any fact, Google it, Google its opposite, and you'll find somebody who's putting it forward, probably seriously. This is not to say all facts, whatever you want to believe is right, and who cares about facts. Quite the opposite. I mean, there are facts and there are things that are false. And it's really important that we be able to tell the difference. All that I'm saying is facts are not going to bring us to agreement. We are still going to believe, well, it depends how political you want to be, but this maybe makes the point. 30% apparently of some segment of the population still believes that our president was born in Kenya. No amount of facts is going to dissuade them. We have people who believe things about vaccination and autism that is extremely dangerous for children. No amount of facts is going to persuade them. We have the argument over climate change continues. Facts are not making a difference. We are not going to, facts don't do what we thought they were going to do. Moynihan's hope is broken. It's not going to work. It's too bad. I'm sorry. I'm not happy about that. But there is a certain empirical evidence that we should gather now. Facts are not going to bring us together. And so on the one hand, we're getting very good at dealing with difference and disagreement in some very fruitful ways. And you see this all over the net. You see it in the rise of forking conversations when they get too disagreeable. You say, oh, go away from this conversation. We want to carry on, but you two continue your argument. That's a really useful way of dealing with disagreement. That's hard to do in the real world, but very easy to do online. We have an increasing move towards including everything, rather than trying to come up with the perfect collection that deletes and excludes all the so-called noise. We're coming to, in many cases, think, no, the right thing to do is include everything, because we cannot anticipate what's going to be interesting and useful to people. We just can't. So include it all. And that's a way also of dealing with difference. Although you have to give people good tools for filtering on the way out, but we're good at that too. The rise of namespaces, where people disagree about what to call something or how to classify it, say in the sciences, but can still talk about it because they know they're talking about the same thing. That's another way of dealing with differences. The rise of raw data, rather than trying to clarify and clean all data before releasing it. For example, at data.gov, cleaning data does not scale. If you ask federal agencies to clean their data and make sure it's all perfect, it will be 20 years and 19 and a half years out of date before it gets released. So just put it all forward. Just let people know that this is unclean data. This is raw data. The rise of preprint sites like archive.org, where scientists can post an article before it's gone through peer review. One of the most important papers recently was the discovery of data, well, the data that indicated maybe neutrinos are moving faster than light, right, from a couple months ago. That was posted, that was not a peer-reviewed paper. It was too important for peer review. So what does that tell you about peer review? Peer review is great, but it doesn't scale. And now we can scale things. For the first time since we invented writing things down, we can actually scale knowledge. But we have to give some things up. And one of those things is filtering so carefully that we only have access to things that we are very, very confident about. So we are learning to deal with difference and disagreement, this world in which facts don't bring us to agreement. We're in very positive ways, but there are terrible prices that we pay. One is that everybody has access, everybody can publish, everybody can speak, and a whole bunch of people are complete idiots. And some of them are evil idiots, and they get to speak as loud as you and I do. And we can't drive them from the stage anymore. You know, they didn't get on to the old nightly news, and they didn't make it into the thin pages of the old newspapers, but now absolutely they do. That's a price that we pay, and it's dangerous, for sure. It's scary. And another is that our brains seem to be homophilous. That is, we like to hang out with people who are like us. We find it's comfortable. We like to do that. And so we tend, rather than taking advantage of access to the world of otherness that is the internet, we tend to hang out with people who are pretty much like us. And this is something we can fight, we can in ourselves, we can educate our children, we can build sites, all of which helps. But the basic urge, the basic preference for people who are like us is not, I think, not even just genetic. It's actually in some ways a condition of conversation, and so it's pretty much built in. So these are very, very real problems. But I think that overall the message that we get from the fact of moving from a time when facts were scarce and settled things and were well thought through and came from experts, all of which was wonderful but did not scale, that what we get from this is not just all those bad things. We also learn that knowledge is not enough, that indeed the old dream that knowledge will be what drives out difference and lets us live together in peace where we all agree if we're all just rational and look at the facts. We learn that knowledge is not enough, that we need, for example, a common good narrative, as was just discussed. Knowledge is not enough, facts are not enough, data is not enough, massive amounts of data is not enough. We need all of our humanity in this struggle. We need all of it, because this is never, has been, and now we know never will be, a struggle simply over facts, data, or knowledge. Much, much more is at stake, is always at stake. This has always been a human discussion. Knowledge has never been fully separated from the person who speaks it, independent of us, the way we thought facts were. It was always embedded in our context and in our projects, what we're trying to do and what we care about. And it turns out that that caring is the most important element of the knowledge that we are dealing with. So yeah, we need your nerds arguing with my nerds. We need all of our nerds caring deeply about the truth and caring deeply about where the truth leads them. They're never going to come to agreement. But that is, in the new world, I think, the greatest strength of knowledge. Thank you.
Already. David, thank you so much. What a great discussion and nice way to close out our day. Few notes, you guys. First, thank you again for coming and sticking with us through this day. We hope you got lots out of it. We certainly did. We encourage you to check out Tech at State online for the videos, some of which I think are already up from previous conversations. And keep using the hashtag. We will keep using it too. So tomorrow, for those of you who will participate in the unconference, it is happening in this same building, I believe on the 3rd floor. Please note that it's going to start at 9:00 for those of you in DARPA world who speak in military time. And you know, we're psyched to see some of you there. Thanks again to our sponsors, and look for the next edition of Tech at State in July in collaboration with Wikimania. Yes, I just said those words out loud. A huge round of thanks to Tim Hayes and all of the folks in e-diplomacy who pulled this off. Thank you.